Hey everyone, Tactics here with my advanced dungeon guide and walkthrough of a timed plus 20 Court of Stars in Dragonflight Season 1. In this video, I'll go over all of the pulls we do in this key, kind of talk you through them, how we handle them, the bosses as well, and hopefully just give you some tips and tricks that you can use to also help you time these keys as well. Also drop the MDT route link down in the description below for anyone that wants to import it for their own use. If you're interested in any of the other Season 1 dungeons, I currently have the Halls of Valor video already posted on my channel, and the rest will be on the way shortly, and I'll link all of those down in the description below as well for you. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click on that notification bell so you don't miss out when a single video gets posted. With that said, let's hop into the dungeon itself, and the first thing I want to talk about is a neat little skip for the boat RP right at the beginning of the dungeon. I should note that we haven't been able to successfully do it this current week. We were able to do it like last week and the week before, so there is a chance that it has been fixed, but I do have some footage from this previous week just kind of show you how we did it then. So basically, we have two people here up at the front. There are a lot of classes that can do this. Anyone with some sort of invis, anyone with a stealth drop, so any night elf basically. So we have hunters over there. We have a rogue. Mages could do it, of course. And anyone in general that's just fast enough to run up the hill. If you don't mind aggroing that one mob. Demon hunters can also do it, of course, because they have that imprison ability they can use to skip the first mob here, but just someone that can get past it. And what you do is basically they'll click this lantern as you see here, and I have the key ready to go, and we wait for the boat to pass around this brick right here. So as you'll see, the boat's going to come in a second here. Here it comes, the boat comes there, it gets right to that brick there, the back of it. We go. The rogue who used the boat has been teleported through to the end of the boat RP. And basically all we need to do is zone out while they run up to the top of the stairs in that very first house. And when that's done, we're able to zone back into the dungeon. And we'll be teleported to that area because the graveyard has moved from the entrance of the dungeon to where the rogue is, past all of the RP. And basically this saves you about 45 seconds to a minute, depending, of course. And obviously if you're able to skip that mob like a rogue, like a demon hunter can, you don't need to pull it as well. So nice little trick there to do this. But again, as I mentioned, we've been having some trouble with it this week specifically. So there's potentially a stealth fix to this little skip here, which I wouldn't be surprised of either, but it did work previously. Now, with that said, let's actually go into the rest of the dungeon, and this is going to be on 1.25 times speed. So off the bat here, we want to get a lust pull, and some people have been pulling the docks. Personally, we like pulling the docks a little bit later, so what we do is we do this pack with one construct, and this construct is basically, as you can see, it's going to melted because we have a lot of funnel in our group, Arcane Mage, Outlaw Rogue. So that construct, especially with Bloodlust, really doesn't live that much longer than anyone else. Note that we do, especially when you're ever pulling it with other mobs, want to make sure charge station is getting kicked. Whenever you're pulling it kind of alone or whatever, it doesn't really matter if it gets kicked. We're moving up here to this sentry. This sentry, you kind of pull this whenever you get to it, right? Sometimes the sentry is padding away, so you just kind of focus on the construct. Because it's here, we're not going to just not pull it and wait. So we're just going to kind of chain CC it, as you see here, and focus it down. Kill it so that we don't need to pull all this stuff over there. We'll get it down there, and we'll be able to pull this guy. A note on suppress as well. If you don't have enough interrupts, or whatever, like if you're a very heavy ranged interrupt comp, suppress can actually be dispelled off of the applied targets. You actually never need to commit an interrupt specifically to suppress if your healer knows that, hey, I'm in charge of dispelling this ability. So just something to keep in mind for that. So we do add the worms here. Note that we waited for this Pat to be away from the worms. Otherwise, he will social aggro. So just be careful. That's why we added the worms when we did. Meanwhile, we still have kicks assigned to that construct. I believe a 12-second cooldown kick is enough to kick every single one of the charging stations, whereas a 15-second kick just isn't quite enough. So keep that in mind. If you have a 12-second kick class, they can kick every one of those charging stations. Otherwise, we move forward here. Big thing to note, we are going to end up pulling these cats. Just keep in mind that they will splash when they charge. So you don't want to be stacked ideally. See, that was on two separate people. because there were 2 cats obviously jumping. And if you're ranged, if you stay back a little bit, you can see when they're jumping, and especially if they sync their jumps, right? You'll see when they come out, and if you see 2 cats jumping at you at the same time, perfect time to pop a personal. Otherwise, it's not too lethal. You can just dispel these. It's not the end of the world. It's really only a problem if you're getting double jumped on at the same time by 2 cats. And so being at range and being able to see them gives you that time to react and pop a personal. Otherwise, like, the rest of this pack is pretty easy. Just watch those frontals, of course. Make sure, of course, you're also interacting with these pillars on the way over. And we're just cleaning up this trash here. And we'll be able to move on past this. Big note on the sentries. I know I've said this in a couple of my other videos, but you always want to make sure that it's your tank aggroing those sentries, because they will do a one-time fire dot onto the first player that aggroes them in any way. And if that's not your tank, they're going to be in for a pretty rough time. It is a pretty hard-hitting dot. So, you know, I tag it. There's that 5-second, not dispellable, pretty big fire dot. I grab the next pack here. There's another one, but luckily it's both on me. If someone else were to butt pull those, they'd be in for a very, very bad time. Yeah, we missed the kick here on the sentry, so we just ended up having to drag this reinforcement with us the whole time. We really don't want this, because if you look, he has a ridiculous amount of HP. Ignore the part that he's sitting and sanguine. But he has a ridiculous amount of HP compared to other mobs here. So it is kind of annoying to ever have these go off, and then you have to keep a kick on them because subdue not stoppable. So it's just a bit annoying. He even has more HP than this construct. Kind of wild. So you really don't want that to happen. So make sure you do have kicks or stops on the bell casts. Otherwise, not really the end of the world here. Just moving forward, again, keeping kicks on construct, watching that frontal. The note that will always be placed on the tank's position. So even if you try and back up and put it and move out of it, for example, it'll always be wherever you are. So don't back up onto anyone, but conversely, you can also use this to, you know, be with people and then move this off to the side, way off of them when it goes out. So note that that is possible. We do end up cleansing all of these pillars or watch posts, whatever the heck they're called, after killing this pack here. We kind of will fan out, click on all these pillars. Watch this pat here, because it can go like right there, and it will social aggro to you if you try and click this, so just be careful. Alchemy / rogue potion. Always something you want to have in this dungeon. It's a free 25% health on this boss, which is very valuable time-wise. And as we're getting the last watchtower, I pull the boss. And, you know, this is a pretty straightforward boss. Really not too much to talk about here. There is a little tech with priests, right? If they have the Mass Dispel talent, you can get all of these arcane lockdowns. You see, like, no one did anything. You can pre-cast Mass Dispel during that arcane lockdown cast. And if you're grouped tight enough, everyone gets dispelled, and they can do that for every single cast. So pretty nice little utility there. Not mandatory by any means, right? You can just jump. You can just single target magic dispel with a regular healer, right? Not really the end of the world if you don't have a priest. Just a nice little tip. See, like, instantly, no one even took a tick of damage. So something to note if you have a priest in your group. Otherwise, not a big deal. Now from here is where there is kind of a neat little tech. We don't actually do it in this video, but I will kind of walk you through it for post the boss. I really don't think there's anything for me to cover on this boss, honestly. Let me know down in the comments below if you do have any problems with this boss, but I definitely feel like he's one of the easier ones in the dungeon. Now, the tech in question is going to be post boss. So, you know, we get the boss 25, he dies. So we would add this pull now in this route up onto the construct here. But if you were doing the tech, you would instead pull this pack onto the boss. I think that's pretty easy to do, given that it's just a bunch of mana worms. I will leave that swirly, but just don't stand in it, and there's only one frontal, but I think it's relatively easy to avoid, so you can add this onto the boss, and instead you would have one class, again, that's similar to the skip initially, that has some sort of like stealth ability, combat drop, or is just really, really fast. This is a good freeze frame, actually. So what you used to be able to do in Legion, which I'm not 100% sure you can even do anymore because of the aggro radius and the construct seeming a bit larger than it was back then, as you could jump up here in stealth, jump across onto this flower pot, and then jump from this flower pot through the door frame, and you wouldn't aggro this true sight mob. Now, I'm not sure that works anymore, but if you have any kind of aggro drop or whatever, so Vanish, Feign Death, Greater Invis, you can just get past this mob, then use that to drop aggro. Or like I said, if you're just really fast, you can just outrun this mob. And what would happen is you would send one player here, through here, past this mob, aggro drop, whatever, and they would run over all through this building like you would have to do, and they would get to the end, and that would trigger the RP event to open the graveyard gate on the other side, back where we started. Let me see if I can find it. The graveyard gate, right there. This graveyard right here. That door opens when you trigger the RP. The two constructs die as well, and so you can have one person run through there, do all that RP, and then either die or run all the way around to meet you. And meanwhile, the other 4 players come and they play docks down on the bottom here. They AoE down docks without that 5th DPSer, and then they come back and they meet up over on the right side of the 3rd boss's area. Like I mentioned, though, we didn't do that in this video, so instead we pulled that pack on top of this construct. We just cleaved it down, and then we manually ran through this area. But that other tech that I just mentioned is probably definitely a bit faster here, so it can, again, save you a little bit of time and give you some decent positioning. Then you get to the bit of RNG area, where you usually pull the same things, but it's kind of going to depend on the spawns you get. Blazing Imps, always pretty dangerous if you let them get a cast off, so very, very important here to coordinate AoE stops. So for this one, we have usually it's Shockwave into AoE Fear. I believe in this specific instance I had to use AoE Fear just before this, so we did, I think, stun into there's the other stun, and it's dead. We do have a 3rd stop, of course, just in case. Ice Storm is a little rough, so you want to make sure you stop that. I believe we stun DR'd it by accident there. So be careful. I definitely want to make sure you're saving a stop for Ice Storm and then a kick on the Searing Glare. Both of those, party damage, scary. Don't let them go off. Then we have the Shadow Mistress Legion Hound here. Usually we would pull that guy into it, but again, the damage, just because we have so much prio damage from the Arcane Mage popping in that pull, it kind of just nuked the big prio mob. Spell Reflect, very strong against Shadow Mistress, note. But also note, this ability was stealth changed to be stoppable. It is stoppable now, so tanks everywhere, breathing a sigh of relief. Commit stops to Shadow Slash here if you're not a prot warrior that is spell reflecting it, because it is a very hard hitting ability, especially on fortified weeks. Otherwise, though, we have another imp pull. I think this one goes less good. Let's see. We have, we got Dragon Breath first into a mist one. Yeah, so I don't remember what exactly we had there, but I believe this is the one where we missed a CC, and that is exactly what happens when you miss a CC. Someone dies. Usually multiple people. We got lucky here. We CC'd it just after, but and like we pop Cloak to live, for example. So that's spooky. Particularly the Drifting Embers is really, really would scare you. The Firebolt hit hard too, but the Drifting Embers like ticks every half second and just nukes players' health pool. So that's what happens when you screw up a CC chain on a 20 fort. Very spooky. Recommend not doing that. But we're able to get through it, get the res off, and this is where you're kind of dealing with the random buffs. So contrary to popular belief here, I think some of the stronger ones are that health regen and health. And I will link the map I have down for the buffs and what activates them down in the description below. Engineering Orb is pretty much a bait now, post-nerf. You never go for it because it forces you to fight another construct, which you don't really want to fight, and it doesn't really disable them, right? So it's like a stun, like a 25% uptime stun on them. Not worthwhile. Don't go after the Engineering Orb. Blacksmith Trap, still pretty strong. It still deals a big chunk of their health and gives them a damage amp, so that's nice, but it's nowhere near as OP as it was back in Legion doing an auto one-shot, and sometimes I believe there was a cheese to kill 2 of them, but yeah, so having a buff spread wasn't like insanely important for a plus 20, to be completely honest with you. We have like an okay spread in this group, but it's really not the end of the world. In hierarchies, though, it's going to be very, very important, but it's easy to cover the important ones, like I mentioned. I believe the Feast, you just need cooking or to be a panda. I believe I have little wigs here as well that'll like, it pops up and tells you like what mobs do what here. So like DK Brew, or DK Monk rather, to open up the brew, etc. But check out that map as well. So we have like the trap active here, and this is kind of where you want to adjust your pull on the fly. There are 2 packs you never want to pull in this area, and that is this pat right here that moves across the boss, and the one on the bridge. You don't really want all the kicks involved in those packs, because of course you have the kicks on the construct, you have the kicks on the I-beam guy. It's a lot to deal with there. So you want to avoid those at all costs. Plus the constructs are just not really efficient count-wise and health-wise. So we pull over this 3-pack here because our Enforcer is also over here. Giving kicks on Searing Glare, etc. The Enforcer trick is still very much a thing in terms of LOS. And let me actually just fast forward this because you guys have seen this. So we grab the Enforcer, pull him over to this wall here, and we can now use this wall to LOS the Fell Detonation. It's a pretty nasty dot, particularly on high fortified. Don't want to deal with it. This is easy damage mitigation on that, so definitely something I recommend doing for sure. Moving on past this though, we pull that Enforcer. This spawns on Makacha. We just lusted on CD here. As I mentioned, we lusted early on in the dungeon. We kind of just want to rip lust here because this second boss, honestly, is not too big of a deal, especially on fortified. Maybe on higher tyrannical keys, it's going to start being a bit weird, but you really, really want to lust the last boss. And so to get that off, you kind of just need to rip this lust wherever you get it. So we end up ripping it here on Imakacha, and then we end up using the Blacksmith Trap and Damage Amp onto the Eyeball mini boss. But again, this is going to vary because of the RNG of both the Enforcer spawn placement and what items are up. You may have no Blacksmith Trap. Maybe you have the like J-Seeing thing or whatever on the other side of the area. So it's really going to depend what you're pulling here. Unfortunately, it's a bit RNG, so keep that in mind. There is a bit of on-the-fly flexibility you need to have specifically for this dungeon. Not too much to talk about for Imakacha. She has the silence you just want to be worried about. Something I do want to mention for the eyeball guy, I can't remember, Valgar. So we use the trap here because he is probably one of the scarier ones, and you may not notice it here because we end up nuking him so fast. But a big issue with him is that impending doom. So what this does is it's a dot, a magic dot, ticking on 2 players, and when it's dispelled, it deals damage to that player and anyone within a small AoE around them. So this hurts. This hurts a lot, especially as you start getting into higher fortified keys. And so you really want to either have a second magic dispel with a warlock, or you dispel one ASAP because you're all pre-spread a little bit, and then the other person just pops a personal or whatever to live through it, or a priest for mass dispel, also pretty nice, as we do have here as well. All of those things very good to have, but just note this is extremely dangerous. This is very, very pain. Think like the magic debuff on the last boss in Temple of the Jade Serpent as like a comparison here, but this is like amped up by fortified. It's a shorter duration, and it does blow up for a pretty significant portion of damage to both the player and anyone near them. So you see we're pre-spread a little bit here, but still in range to like be mass dispelled should we have mass dispel up. There it is. Yeah, I think we jump back in a little bit early there because that's what 2 detonations look like. But otherwise, be a little bit spread. Like this would be very, very good for the melee here, just so they don't cleave. Being on opposite sides of the boss with 2 melee is just fine. Because that's pain, right? Like that kills you very, very quickly. It is a heavy dot. It is a heavy burst of damage to you and anyone near you. So be careful with that. You have been warned here for sure. But we're just moving across here because that's kind of where our spawns are. The Enforcer is there, but I believe we already know that we have a couple of spawns over here to use. From, I think, what's up here? We have the market goods and maybe the jewel crafting thing over there as well. Pulling the imps here because these guys pat very annoying. We don't mess up the CC chain here. Very good to see. Pulling just the rest of this trash here, and as you'll notice, something these pulls are not large. These pulls are quite small, right? And that's just kind of the nature of this dungeon. You have a few big pulls, but a lot of the pulls are pretty small in this dungeon, just because there's a lot of like very dangerous things you want to make sure you get. Packs are very far apart, and like if we pulled 2 Inquisitors and 2 Mistresses together, like that's a pain pack. Like I don't think you want to do that. That's not something you want to commit to doing. Be careful of that Shockwave, of course, from Drad. This guy's definitely the easiest one, though, and that's why you see us pulling trash into him, because he's certainly the easiest of the 3 mini-bosses. All of his damage is completely avoidable. He has no kind of kicks, no dispels, interrupts, right? Nothing like that. And so you can, and we routinely do, pull mobs onto him and just cleave them down alongside of him. So we just cleave that pack there, the 2-pack. Watch that shockwave, yeah, because it does hurt if you get hit by it. And then what we're going to do here is now we're going to pull docks. But as I mentioned, if you do that skip, which is definitely a little bit faster to do, you'd have already pulled docks with 4 people. And then you can just come in and clear this area because you can walk right through this gate that we're going to walk back through. So fast forward for a second here. I'm just going to walk back through. This is the gate that opens up when you do the RP. And so we're just going to go down and pull docks here. Big thing you want to note is the Arcanist. The Arcane Orb kick is pretty nasty, so make sure you grab that. Otherwise, it's just Frontal City. These Bound Energies have a frontal line. The Guards have a frontal cone. And then the Arcanist also has that Silent Circle. And then, of course, that Orb you want to kick. So pretty low damage pull, assuming you dodge everything. If you don't dodge everything, you will just start getting one-shot, so be careful with that. But that's why this pull is pretty nice. It's one of the bigger pulls you can do in the whole dungeon as well, just because, again, of how it's kind of situated with the pulls, with the important mobs. So that's why we do this then. Killing a sentry, and then we're just making our way over, and we're going to finish off this pack, Sanguine being all nice, and we go straight to boss. We're already done percent here, so we did overpull very slightly, so be aware of that. Potentially you can just drop that little worm pack I showed you after the first boss that I suggest you can pull onto the first boss. It really depends on how many enforcers you plan on killing for sure. Then we get to Flame Wreath, another boss where a 12-second kick covers every single boss kick. And similarly, these imps, you never really want to get a cast off at all. They don't cast initially, so don't waste something like an AoE stun instantly. Wait for them to actually start casting before you start committing your stops. Big tip there. And be as stacked as possible. See here, we're stacked up. We move away. We had one a little bit off, but we group them up. It's fine. Do not touch these puddles because they are insta-death if you touch them. And we just have our AoE stops similar to how we assign them for the trash pack of imps. We have AoE stops here assigned like per wave. Like we have like 1 to 2 stops per wave here assigned. So that we always have the waves covered, and we're just blasting the boss here. Again, the damage will ramp up, but on the fort keys, even without Bloodlust, it doesn't ramp up fast enough for it to actually kill you too badly. So Tyrannical might be a little more scary, was definitely a little bit scarier, rougher on the Tyrannical Grievous combo, but honestly, not terrible. Not too hard of a fight there. That brings us to the little RP find the intruder thing. So we're talking to all the rumor mongers, and there are a couple tips for this. So one, people did ask what that's popping up. Little wigs. If you have it, we'll just pop it up, and you can see it leaves like a list of clues here. So we run around, we get them all. We have a demon hunter. So the instant you have found all 5 clues, the demon hunter can use spectral sight, and it will reveal who the imposter is. So that's what we do here. Another neat tip you can do is Truth Guard. Specifically, the Truth Guard Transmog is enough to give you the ability to determine the imposter. So any paladin, not just prop paladins, ret paladins and holy paladins as well, if you keep a set of transmogged weapons in your bags, or even just Truth Guard itself in your bags, you can swap to them because, of course, since Shadowlands, you've been able to swap weapons in Mythic Plus. You can swap to your Truth Guard Transmog and run around, and you will get the Truth Guard notification if you're near one of the imposters, enemies, whatever. And you'll be able to interact with them as any paladin spec. You don't need to be a prop paladin to do this. So very cool tip for paladins there. Of course, like I mentioned, the Demon Hunter is able to determine who they are because we got all 5 clues. He's spectral sighted. It's that one there. Otherwise, you kind of do this the old-fashioned way of like going through the clues and like analyzing everyone. Definitely takes a little bit longer. So very good to have a paladin or a demon hunter in your group. And the benefit of the paladin one is you don't need to have found all 5 clues. The demon hunter, you do need to have found all 5 clues for spectral sight to reveal who it is. Truth Guard, it doesn't. So keep that in mind. But now we get to the mini boss himself. I'll fast forward a bit to him. This guy, again, straightforward. Have a CC for every bat. Vampiric Claws will heal based on the damage done, so tanks mitigate it, use a stronger DR or whatever, because the next boss isn't scary for most tanks, but it is very scary for DPSers, that is for sure. Not much to talk about for this guy, honestly. Just make sure someone clicks his keys and someone goes and opens the door. Oh, actually, one thing I do want to note about this whole thing here, make sure and you can't really see it, but basically make sure someone guesses wrong. That is very, very important because it will prevent you from getting the long RP for the last boss here. So you can see like inside, I believe that, yeah, Priest runs in, talks to someone random, and he gets ported out. So he guesses wrong on purpose initially to guarantee we don't get long RP. Don't ask me why that works. It just does. So make sure someone guesses wrong. And then let's go to the boss itself. And this is definitely the wall in this dungeon, right? This is what's going to kind of, are you going to time this dungeon? Is do you kill this boss or not? I do have some tips here to make it a little bit easier for you, but this is a rough one. And there is definitely some misunderstanding with how the actual wins on the boss, which is what the lethal portion of the fight is, how those actually function. So let's get into the boss. So right off the bat here, you can see we have a range DPS over here. He's the only person out of range of the boss. So he is always going to be the targeted person by Blade Surge. What he can do here is he can kind of juggle the boss back and forth, right? Move out of that Blade Surge, move back onto that spot here, and bait the next one out there towards the same spot. As you can see here, because he's always at range, the other range DPS, or it's actually the healer, is in melee. Nothing bad's going to happen there. The Slicing Maelstrom comes out. There are two portions of damage coming from the Slicing Maelstrom. The first is the just general ticks. No matter what happens, you cannot avoid those ticks. It's a small portion of damage. The second portion of damage coming from these Slicing Maelstroms is the actual damage from being within 7 yards of the boss or any of his images. If you are within range of any of those things, you take a second tick. This tick is more than double the first tick. So potentially what you end up seeing on this boss fight, specifically later on in this boss fight, is people even staying away from the boss during the Slicing Maelstrom cast to get rid of that bigger tick hit entirely, because the clones also duplicate this ability, including the unavoidable tick. Luckily, there is a cap on the number of clones that can be out at any one time. As you'll see as the fight moves on, the clones will actually die and fall over, and they won't stop continue to duplicate any of the abilities, but that is kind of how this functions. That's why you're still taking a ton of damage even if you're away from clones. If you're still near the boss, you're going to take those bigger ticks. Even if you're just not near the boss, you're like 2 minutes into this fight, you're like, why do these wins hit way harder than the previous wins? That's why, because there's the cap of clones up, and they're also casting this ability. So you really want to, especially later on in this fight, try and back away from the boss even during those casts, because you're going to be taking so much higher damage than early on in the fight. Other than that, there are some things tanks can do. For example, after piercing glares go out, so you're not in danger of dying, you can soak some of the tornadoes and just get a magic dispel from the stun. Cloak also worked to clear these tornadoes as well. The big thing that I've noticed though is just being careful. I usually wait to clear until after this piercing gale, because sometimes you don't get dispelled fast enough and you're just in the line of a piercing gale and there's nothing you can do. So wait till those go out before you start soaking a tornado. I'll move over here. I'll soak these nearby ones just to make the life of my party a little bit easier, so that they don't have to worry about these tornadoes and I just lose a little bit of uptime, but not really. See, that's what happened there. We were standing between the boss and an image because we had a slight misplacement on the image. That's fine, by the way. Not a big deal. If you, like, sometimes you just can't quite get there fast enough or whatever it is. But look, we have all this clear space of the platform, so we should have just backed up away from this image. Sometimes the boss just doesn't run far enough back to you for melee specifically to be in melee with the boss, because otherwise you get cleaved by two there, as you saw. Very, very dangerous. So you just need to really be aware of where the boss is, where the images are, and hey, can I actually dip in here and do some damage during the Maelstrom, or should I just back off and be a bit safer? And in a lot of cases, because of how free this timer is, you want to play safe on the boss. So don't greed for damage here. If the winds are casting and you're a little bit worried about the damage because it's later in the fight, or you're not sure if the image is close enough to cleave you as well, just back up. And you know, give your healer a little bit of a break. They're still going to be pumping out healing because the Maelstrom alone, like I mentioned, does deal a flat unavoidable bit of damage that isn't insignificant. So there's a lot of damage going on in this fight. And another thing I do recommend, if you have any form of ranged DPS, to have them do this bait. Having your healer do this and then also having to heal Maelstrom, it's just a lot of movement. Obviously, like some like Resto Druids and stuff have an easier time doing that. But if you have the ability to put a ranged DPS out here doing these baits, I would definitely recommend that. Just kind of rinse and repeat from there. So that wraps up this video, guys. Hopefully it helps you get your own plus 20 keys timed. And if it does, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out, and it's free for you to do. As I mentioned earlier, this is just one video in a full series of walkthroughs planned, not only for Season 1, but the rest of Dragonflight and beyond that as well. So make sure you keep an eye out for all of those videos. If you have any questions whatsoever about this dungeon, about the route in general, tanking, whatever it is, leave those down in the comments below. Or if you prefer, come stop by my Twitch channel at Tactics, where I stream high keys and mythic rating from a tank's perspective. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.